Aloha, everyone. Michelle Melendez with Blossom Inner Wellness and StandTogetherHawaii.com. And today I'm going to be interviewing Bruce Douglas on Maui, who has been studying weather on the islands for over 15 years. And he's going to show you a slideshow as well as both of Acapulco and Maui and to be discussing whether we're just going to say this word one time, weather, and then after that is modification because I'm not sure what they're screening for anymore on this channel. And then afterwards, I'm going to show you the US patent for the weather M, so WM. And then also going to show you the US Congress Act of 1976. So if you think this stuff, and I'm going to show you a Weather M company as well as the projects that they have planned or that they are doing actually. So Bruce, thank you so much for joining me from Maui.
Good to be with you.
And before we get
Exciting
started,
information.
and I forgot to tell you, I was going to ask you this, is anything new happening with Lahaina that you can share with us before we get started?
Well, we put together some of our first forensic information, and if you go to MauiCommunityInvestigation.com, is a website, and we have some videos up there where, I talk about the weather anomalies and the windstorm, whether it was engineered or natural, and we look at, various other things that we found and questions that we have. So, best place for updates is to go to MauiCommunityInvestigation.com.
Okay. Great, great. And I'll add that to the description. So you guys can just click on the description for that link, as well as I'll add it to standtogetherhawaii.com. And so Bruce, what do you want to say about what happened in Acapulco? What do you want to show us?
Well, let me jump right into a little slideshow because to show the real thing works the best. And basically what this is about is, was the Acapulco Hurricane Otis engineered or natural? And I'm going to present my understandings and what I see from my point of view and let you decide what it was.
All right.
So what I look at is infrared satellite images. And for some reason, so it should work now. Yes. I look at these infrared satellite images. Infrared sees either heat or reflectivity. And this tells it all. If there's any aerosols being used, any weather engineering nanoparticles of aluminum, primarily aluminum, but also a whole bunch of other minerals in it that are nanoparticulate form, these are reflective particles and they shine really brightly. And if you look at the very bottom, you can see a scale where it gets to the far right-hand side, and that's either, lots of moisture or highly reflective. It's either cold temperature for something high in the atmosphere, because this is heat, or reflectivity. If it's highly reflective surface, then it'll also dominate the screen. So I'm just going to show you what Hurricane Otis looks like off the coast. And it wasn't really a hurricane at all. It was just at this point a tropical storm. And you can see it sort of like, little, looks like there's something, a big aerosol explosion comes in from the side. It suddenly starts to spin up into a hurricane from just a broken up tropical storm, and bang, it hits Acapulco and then immediately breaks up. There's a whole bunch of weather anomalies off the coast, and then the hurricane's totally broken up and gone.
So can you show us because I'm not used to seeing satellite imagery.
Mm-hmm.
This is all new for me.
Mm-hmm.
So can you show us where the aerosols would be coming in? Like how can a layman can see this?
Well, my next one, I'm going to slow it down.
Okay.
So we're going to see it at a slower speed and try to understand, what's happening as you slow it down. And then I'll go even slower where you can really see it frame by frame what's happening. Now, what I'm proposing here is that what's happening is there are boats out in the ocean that have aerosol generators on them and are able to create clouds, which basically uses these nanoparticles to sequester the moisture down in the troposphere, down in the lower atmosphere where all the weather is, and make it rise up into the stratosphere where there shouldn't be clouds and there shouldn't be weather up there because there's no moisture. All the troposphere contains all of our natural clouds. So if you're flying in a plane, you see clouds higher than the planes fly. Those by definition aren't natural because you can't have clouds in the stratosphere. And so this has been my research, is to look at these point sources out in the ocean and on land spots as well, which suddenly generate a cloud out of nothing, nothing around it, nothing there. Just suddenly there's something goes out in all directions looking kind of like an explosion. And voila, there's suddenly clouds.
Wow. Wow.
And
Go
so
ahead.
what I'm seeing then is these gooey, stringy, cotton candy looking clouds that you see, particularly here in Hawaii, that are in the stratospheric winds higher than planes fly, are artificial clouds creating from these sources. So what I'm looking for here is, was there any sort of using artificial means in order to create weather? Because weather is natural and it's engineered from my point of view in my research. And I've been following this for 15 years when I first realized that what we thought chemtrails, we think that there's actually aerosols coming out of the back of the plane, but now we have flight trackers and we know that those are, commercial airliners going from here to there. Most of them are. And what's actually happening is when a plane flies near an aerosol cloud in the stratosphere, an artificial aerosol cloud, the moisture of combustion from the back of the plane condenses in the nanoparticles that are already there and create what I call an aerosol trail, not a chemtrail. And I see that the whole chemtrail agenda was misinformation purposely put out there to distract people so they're not looking at the real source, which is the boats in the ocean and land bases that are creating clouds artificially. And I'm going to show you later in this, the machines they make it with and the machines they manipulate it with. But
Wow.
first, we're going to look at the actual Acapulco hurricane, which is the latest tragedy that has just happened. And how does a tropical storm, nothing happening out there, suddenly spin off into a class 5 hurricane?
Yeah, and
With
the
no rain.
meteorologists, the weather people, I mean, they were like, how can they be so wrong? That's a freaking huge mistake. Mistake. Anyway, go
Yeah.
ahead. Yeah.
Well, let's take a look. We're going to slow it
Yeah.
down here. So this is the tropical storm. And I'm seeing these little sudden bursts of clouds going and then dissipating. Like it looks like they're trying to whip something up. I see this burst right here happening. And so here's a little burst, kind of coming out of nowhere, But what's most interesting is what happens when a big aerosol comes in from the side. All the yellow is extremely dense material. And then there's 5 hours missing, and then it suddenly jumps into a hurricane, like within a short
Wow.
amount of time, within a few hours' time, it spins up. And as it moves closer to shore, it speeds up into a full,
Wow.
class 5 hurricane. Kaboom, it nails Acapulco, quickly breaks up. And then there's these aerosol releases off the shore just to create a little bit of rain. So it looks something like a hurricane.
Oh my
The rest of it
gosh.
quickly disappears. Now, remember, this is a hurricane without rain. It was just a cloudy windstorm, which is not what hurricanes do. And hurricanes don't suddenly, create out of nothing. They take time to generate, and they don't generate at this point. They all generate at 10 degrees latitude for the most part,
Mm-hmm.
where it's an updraft zone called the intertropical convergence zone in meteorology. It's a natural updraft zone that creates the conditions for hurricanes to form at 10 degrees latitude. So they just don't form when they're, that far off of the area where.
And that quickly, yeah. And then it dissipated so fast.
Yeah.
I was
So
like, okay,
let's
I'm
look at
done.
let's look at this little aerosol blast coming in from the side, which is when it really starts to suddenly
Can you use
spin.
your mouse and show us that?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So coming in from the side here is where we're going to look at it. We saw they had several looking explosions happening, these little quick little bursts of this yellow is a highly dense material. And is that natural, thunderheads forming, from within the storm? Or is it, aerosols? That's the whole question. But the one that's definitely bizarre is this one that comes in from the side just before it suddenly spins off. So let's look at it here in medium speed, where you see right here on the side, this big burst comes in on the side right here, comes in, and then 5 hours are missing in the linkage, and then suddenly it's spinning into a hurricane. Now, what
Did you say
happens in the
five
missing
hours
5
are
hours?
missing?
5 hours are missing in the sequence.
5 hours are missing. How
Five
does that
hours are
happen?
missing. I don't know. Every now and then there's one or two missing, but to have 5 hours missing is, very bizarre. We're going to look at what happens during the missing 5 hours.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Wow,
So
wow, wow.
what I'm seeing really clearly here is that aerosol burst from the side coming in at this moment right here. Boom, coming in from the side, shooting into it, and then there's missing time, and then suddenly right after the missing time it's starting to spin. Now I suspect there were a couple of massive bursts at that between those 2 points where it's missing, but here you see it starts to spin. Now,
Wow.
what's really interesting to notice while this is happening is that these clouds right here are doing a different trajectory from the clouds below it. There's two levels of things happening here. There's something happening in the stratospheric winds up high,
Mhm.
up where planes fly, 30,000, 40,000 feet. And there's another event happening in the troposphere, something 5 to 20,000 feet, where the actual weather patterns happen and cap off at 20,000 feet. Now, these hurricanes can rise up into the up high, but you keep seeing how there's this other phenomena happening where these stripes and things are going, and you see another cloud layer down below just moving along their merry way where nothing's happening, showing me there's two levels of clouds, which is something I'm seeing, and what I'm seeing is engineered weather patterns where the aerosols they put off tend to rise up into the stratosphere. Now, these aerosols seem to be coal fly ash. It has the same fingerprint of coal fly ash. Now, when you burn coal at extremely high temperatures, um, the minerals, natural earth minerals in the earth, by the way, coal is not from old dinosaurs. So the natural earth minerals mixed in with it, and these become nano, extremely fine. It's just like a volcanic eruption. Volcanic eruption happens. The extremely high temperatures takes all the natural earth minerals and makes it rise and makes it extremely nano. So when a volcanic eruption goes off, these particles sequester the moisture down the troposphere, give it nucleate, something to attach to. It then rises up into the stratosphere in the explosion. And then the products of a volcanic eruption travel around the earth for years sometimes until they finally all come down.
Wow.
Well,
Okay.
the same thing happens with coal. When you burn coal at high temperatures, it makes the minerals nano. But that's extracted because they're ionic particles, and these things called electrostatic precipitators pull these ionic minerals out of the smokestacks, and it becomes a waste product. And the biggest product in that is aluminum, but it's also got barium, strontium, nickel, cadmium, zinc, a whole host of different earth minerals are all mixed in it. And what we're seeing coming down on these quote spray days is got the same fingerprint as coal fly ash. So this is the latest thought as to what they're actually spraying in these aerosol programs.
That's incredible. Okay.
So let's look at this little thing
Yes,
one more
please.
time at even slower pace. Right here where you see this thing come in from the side, you can even see a tail on it. It shoots into the area from the side.
Hmm.
5 hours missing, and then the blast starts to turn it right there, and it starts to spin really quickly. And each one of these clicks is like every 15, it's like 10 to 20 minute clicks. So as it moves, it's a very, short period of time. This all happened very quickly, except for the missing 5 hours in the record.
Missing 5 hours, you guys. That is insane. So, did you want to show us a slideshow of this, or I saw you had something else up?
Yeah, I got some other things coming as a little PowerPoint. So here is that coming in again and then suddenly spinning, where this thing bursts laterally from the side, goes into the center, and then starts to spin. So this is the point here where we have this missing period of time. So look at it again, coming in from the side, shooting in, right? And then it gets to this point right here. So you saw the aerosol, you saw it push in from the side. You see almost another burst right here coming up. Then the next slide is the missing 5 hours, where suddenly we have it
It's a lot
looking
bigger.
like this. It's a lot
Hmm.
bigger. There's been more aerosols in there. They didn't want us to see that part of something suddenly going. So it was struck from the record.
Wow.
So here it is there right after this aerosol injection happened from the side. This is what I see in hurricanes is aerosol injections where it's breaking apart. They inject aerosols into it and suddenly it starts to spin. And there it is after the 5 hours later where it's suddenly
So
huge.
it just goes from the smaller guy to the
It goes from there in
ah,
5 hours to even more aerosols there. So something else has happened. You see how big that is
yeah.
between here and here. That missing 5 hours is a key to what was really going on in here. But obviously you can see suddenly there was a whole pile of
Yeah.
in order to create this whole big region. I mean, the size of Guatemala, as a big storm out there filled with aerosols, and then it suddenly starts to spin. So from
You
here, this point to there,
you guys,
and
they
then
think we're stupid. They
from
think
that
we're
point there, it
stupid.
spins.
And this is proof right here. He's showing you what happened over Acapulco. This was absolutely an attack, another attack, you guys, and it's been happening because people don't understand that there is things like weather. I'm just going to say the word modification, and in the fact, I'll show that at the end because I'm wanting to show the Congress Act of 1976 that wanted to do more research on this in 1976. This has been going on, you guys. So, all right. Thank you, Bruce. Anything else? Do you want to? Yes, please
Yes, I
share
got a
us the
bunch more to
next.
show.
Great,
There's a few more slides. So
great,
this is
great.
like a computer rendering of the actual hurricane. That's a 3D image. So they take a computer and show the rapid turning. But I want you to notice there's this weird layer on the very top, way up high in the atmosphere where it's flat and
Can
spinning
you
up there.
use your mouse? Use your mouse and show us a little bit?
Yeah, so up here in this area right here, we'll
Okay.
show you another one where you can see it a little bit better, where you can see
Oh,
Acapulco right there.
yeah.
Then this is a computer AI rendering of the actual 3D event. So
Wow.
you see this layer up here on the top, which is more pronounced than what's down below.
Yeah.
It's what I'm calling a stratospheric hurricane, and I'm seeing a bunch of these days, where from the sky, you look down, you see a spinning hurricane, but if you're down on the ground level, you don't, like, where's the hurricane? Where's it happening? Here, there was no range down below. There was no signs of any sort of hurricane, yet it's spinning up here in the stratosphere at high speed and causing whatever's down below it to spin at the same time. So it looks to me like they injected injected aerosols into it. The aerosols did what they do. They rise up into the stratospheric level. They then use the device to create it to spin, right? And making what's down below it spin without any water and creating the illusion of a hurricane. This is what I'm seeing happen from my point of view.
Wow.
And just so you understand what an aerosol generator is, here's a one that's certain around the internet. It's this old school. This is like 1970s, early 80s technology. This is
Yep.
old school technology, and they got way more sophisticated and miniaturized stuff now. But this is, a news reporter talking about this incredible aerosol generator thing, and he's very excited about what he's seeing, and it's very noisy, so he has these things on. But it's actually making clouds right there, and pumping out a big level of clouds. You can kind of understand from a smaller point, as a small unit, old school, what's happening and how it can actually propel it out. And they'd never allow these sort of videos to be seen now, but the guy is getting all excited because he sees the cloud, and then he suddenly, it starts to rain. He's getting wet. He's getting rained on. He's so excited. They created weather. They made it rain. This is so exciting, and there's the device out there in Mississippi making it happen. And so
Wow.
what you notice that happens, it expulses it but then the stuff rises straight up and starts going up into the stratosphere.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to bypass the clouds that you see at the lower level, the normal puffy clouds, which are like, 2 to 7,000 feet off the ground, go above the top end of the pattern where the cirrus clouds are, 10 to 15,000 feet, and then pop into the stratosphere, hit the high-speed stratospheric winds and go on their merry way. But that's an example of what I'm talking about, an aerosol generator.
Yeah. That's
Um,
incredible. And this has been going on since the 70s, you guys. So,
yeah, like I said, it's an old school device.
mm-hmm.
So once it's up there, these are ionic particles. If they're using coal fly ash, they're ions, they're charged, just like the ionosphere where the ozone layer is. Those are ions, they're charged particles. And radio and frequency waves can interact with ions. You can't interact with normal clouds so much because there's no ion, there's nothing in it for interact with. It has to have ions in it. And so, we're seeing this whole rapid intensification becoming common, like it never used to happen. We never used to have something. When a hurricane broke up, that was it. It was gone. It already had its force, especially if it veers off 10 degrees latitude where it, has all the energy for generating. They break up pretty quickly when they veer off of 10 degrees latitude and turn into tropical storms. So they don't just, this whole thing of rapid intensification just before it hits its target is a new sort of thing. And we're seeing a whole project here of stratospheric haze happening. Now, this is 1994. There's a volcanic eruption. There's a bunch of stratospheric haze from this volcanic eruption. Right. And over, it was really high, but then it diminishes down within a couple years, 2 years time. It was, pretty much diminished back to normal tracks again after the hurricane, But now we've been seeing this process. This only goes till 2010, and I can't find anything since that time of tracking stratospheric haze. I guess they don't want us to know about it because I can't find any documentation tracking it after 2010. We had another 13 years where stratospheric haze is basically, if it stay that trajectory, 10 more years, it's going to be at the same level it was after a major volcanic eruption.
Wow.
So we have GOP going into the stratosphere, basically reflecting us, what these guys think they're doing is they're reflecting some light hitting the planet to cool the planet down, save us from global warming.
And if you guys believe in global warming, I'm going to show you over 1,000, what is it? 1,900, can't remember the number. No, 1609. 1,609 scientists around the world that say there's no climate emergency. And I'll show you that at the end.
So this was what most people know as the HARP antennas in Alaska. Now, this is obsolete now. They've made mini HARPs all over the world, but this was the big array where they took all the power from a hydroelectric dam and they pumped it, into this array to shoot up as an ionospheric heater. This very interesting. A couple of days after the earthquake in Japan, this array was turned off and not used again. Raytheon, who was the contractor running it, decided they're not going to run it anymore. And that's been since mothballed because it's actually now obsolete. It's this old school technology. But, high frequency active oral research program, it's not a secret. It's all out there. It's called ionospheric heaters. It's for heating up the ionosphere, the upper atmosphere and the ionosphere. So it takes a huge amount of power and aims it to a small area. What happens when you heat the ionosphere is when you put the frequency and vibrations on it, it gets hotter and more molecules move faster in this one region you're aiming this energy at, and it raises it up and creates a low pressure cell down below it. So you're actually creating low pressure. And through that, you can guide wind storms and stuff by creating low pressure cells. You can also create a low pressure, rise it up, and then suddenly turn it off and be like a drum beat coming down on the planet
Like we
below
had in
it.
Maui. Do you have that picture? You want to show that really
I
fast?
do. I will come to that when we
Great.
get through
Okay,
this,
good.
and then
All
we
right.
can go to Maui after I'm done with Acapulco. So when you have that drum beat up there going, you can actually create frequencies, or you can create low pressure cells. But you can also, just because this is the ionospheric heater, once you have aerosols, you can interact with ions in the aerosols directly. And this is how I see they're actually spinning it. Here's Physics Today copying HARP, the most powerful ionospheric heater in the world, 2015, before they shut it down. But now they've got new technologies where they don't need this whole thing. There's basically these ionospheric heaters, and these are the big ones all across the world that can work together in synchrony, particularly when you have different heaters aiming at the same part of the ionosphere together. You can create extremely powerful events in the ionosphere. Right. So
Wow.
this is the one in Peru. It's as big as the array in Alaska. It's still in use today. Ionospheric heater in Peru that takes, again, the power from a hydroelectric dam and pumps it into these array to aim huge amounts of power and manipulate the weather. And so you can see we have these HARP and HARP-like ionospheric heaters all over the world. They're everywhere now because now they don't have to have these big arrays. They can have much smaller type of devices. And this is from the patent, where basically, it says, with the advent of smaller mobile arrays, artificial ionospheric mirrors will no longer be limited to the polar regions. A new technique called ionospheric current drives will allow HARP-like heaters along the equator to create ELF, extra low frequency waves. And ELF, extra low frequency waves, is what we're talking about, that would create the vibration, the up and down vibration that we see in manipulating the weather, or creating other things. But through these powerful devices, you can not only you can bounce them off the ionosphere, you can heat the ionosphere, you can aim them at different targets in different areas, and so you can use the ionosphere as a reflector and come down and take it. And if you make a spinning pattern, then you can take a pile of ions, like in an aerosols, and suddenly cause it to spin. We have the technology to do that. The question is, are we using it to create hurricanes? I'm saying all evidence shows yes, we are. But I can't directly prove that.
Yeah.
But I can say all evidence points to it. We have the technology, we have the signs and symptoms of it happening, without actually being able to monitor what these arrays and stuff are doing and how they're working together. It's really hard to prove what's happening. But yes, we have the technology.
Absolutely.
And in fact, we have the technology right here. And this is the HARP dome coming into Honolulu Harbor, with this huge dome on top with huge power generation capacity and these huge capacitor banks to hold the charge so they can put pulses out in big bursts. Everybody there in the military, they call it the HARP dome. They don't make any tracks about what it is. On their website, they spent $1 billion building this thing in order to do it. So was this being used? Here it is coming into Seattle, into the harbor there. So, they make no hiding about this device, as an ionospheric heater and what it's capable of doing. So with that information, do you think
so what are they saying that they're
natural?
using these for? What are they saying they're using these for? Like, if that's
Well, they
there
try
and
to
it's in
say
plain
it's
sight.
X-ray communication systems. They try to come up with some goofy type of idea that you can blow holes all over to try to explain what it's being used for, which is not its intention whatsoever.
Yeah.
And everybody there calls it the HARP name. No, it's a HARP device run by the HARP people, and not, X-ray communication, Z-way communication device, like they try to say it is. Like, oh, it's just a communication device. We spend $1 billion for communication. No, that's an ionospheric heater in that device, like there are all over the world now. And,
Yep.
So if you take that type of device, whether it's mounted to a boat or it's mounted to that device or other ways, I can't tell what it is. There's many forms of this technology now. And so I couldn't put my finger and say exactly what it was, but we have the ability to take something that's been ionized and suddenly causing it to spin. And I have other showings where I show hurricanes out in the Pacific, where you see this thing spinning like this, and then you see normal clouds going underneath it and coming back out the other side. In other words, something's spinning in the stratosphere up high, And people on the internet saying, where's the hurricane? We're looking at the wind speeds from the buoys out in the ocean.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be 100-mile-an-hour winds, but we're just seeing 15-mile-an-hour winds. Where's the hurricane? Why aren't we getting winds down below, And because what I'm seeing, it's a stratospheric thing, and you see the normal
It's up
troposphere
top.
it's going like this on top.
Mm-hmm.
So if you crane it on top and you freshly throw some aerosols into it, then you can get the whole column to spin and create something that has no rain in it, right? But is spinning and creating incredible windstorm just by spinning aerosols that you generated, artificial clouds that
Wow.
don't have any rain attached to them. And that's what I'm perceiving happen with Acapulco.
Yeah.
And I just put all this stuff together yesterday. And so you're the first person
Well, thank
I'm
you so much for
sharing
doing that.
the information with.
Do you want to show us that one video of Maui really fast again? Because we're not forgetting about Maui, everybody. It's not over. I've sent some flyers over to one of the leaders over there to help people who have bills or mortgages. The email to contact, he will help you get those discharged. So please, and I'm going to put his email for the Lahaina survivors only. Lahaina survivors only. You can contact Tony at Sovereign Productions 369. Actually, it's Sovereign Productions 369 at Gmail, I think it is. I'll put his email in the description. That's only for Lahaina survivors to discharge all their bills and all their mortgages. Also, any Lahaina survivors out there, if your rights have been violated, if you haven't been able to go back to your house, any rights have been violated, there's a lawyer who is working pro bono for you guys. It's got to be on his list. So you're going to contact Gary for that, and I'll leave his number in or his email in the description. But yes, Bruce, anything you want to say about Lahaina?
Lahaina. Well, let's
Yeah.
look at Lahaina. Um, so Lahaina fire windstorm, was it engineered or natural? Now the windstorm was the center part of the fire. I mean, and I'm going to show you some arson points in the fire as well later, where I see brush fires were started by arson. But what's interesting is twice a day there's a satellites that cruise around the whole planet, and twice a day they take a picture of every quadrant in the planet at high resolution. And so this is the Hawaii portion of the high resolution twice a day shots. And here you see normal, the morning of August 5th, the firestorm was on the 8th. So here we have the 5th, it's normal weather patterns. In the afternoon of the 5th, normal weather patterns. The 6th morning, normal weather patterns. 6th afternoon, normal weather patterns, but something funny happens on the 7th. Suddenly the clouds start lining up in straight lines and coming at us from the trade winds. Now the trade winds come from the northwest and head this direction. So these clouds are heading for the Hawaiian Islands, but you notice they stop at the Hawaiian Islands. They don't go beyond the Hawaiian Islands. These are just normal puffy clouds on the other side. And here's these clouds lined up in perfect lines. In the afternoon, it got very pronounced. And I'm sitting on my front porch of my house in the North Shore where I'm sitting right now, and I'm looking up at the clouds, and I'm seeing these straight lines of clouds coming at us, perfectly formed, like long tubes of clouds like I've never seen before. Like, wow, look at that. And we had major winds that day. We had 30-mile-an-hour winds, constant winds coming at us on the 7th. And there was a strange white haze across the island too that was coming in. I wondered, what is that white haze? Well, I didn't see any signs of reflectivity in it, but you can see there, I don't see any reflectivity. That's when the haze was happening. So I assumed it was when we used the salt spray coming off from these 30-mile-an-hour winds gusting across the oceans. Maybe that's the white haze because I don't see any reflective particles in it. Now, it could be phosphorus or sulfur that doesn't reflect, but, I don't know. I don't know what that white haze was. I've never seen that. I've never seen clouds line up. And then the morning of the 8th, clouds are still lined up. It's a little different reflection in the pattern, so you don't see it exactly the same.
But there's
actually,
nothing. What blows my mind is
nothing.
it just stops at the Hawaiian Islands, and
But
the weather changes.
the weather changes and doesn't go past it. But take a look at Lahaina town right there. This cloud shows these winds are going this way, and this right here shows that they're actually in the shadow of the West Maui's right there. Lahaina typically has very few winds,
Hmm.
right? Because it's in the shadow. Right here, you
And where
see
was the
none of that.
hurricane,
The
Bruce? Tell him where
hurricane, I'll show
was,
you, it was 500
yeah,
miles to the south of us. And you'll see
left
that in
to
just a
south,
minute.
left, lower
Yeah.
left-hand side, everybody. That's where the hurricane was.
So the main fire lit in the afternoon of the 8th. The afternoon of the 8th, here's the clouds lined up in a perfect line, creating the wind coming at us. But for some reason, Maui is all blocked off by this black line out of it. Conveniently, we don't have a record of that. It's blocked out.
So this was the actual picture that shows the black line there.
Right. Now, there is sometimes these black lines do appear across the screens randomly, some aberrant thing of the rotation of something up there. And so sometimes there's sections that are blotted out. It's curious this happened at exactly the moment when we're having our fires in the, afternoon of the 8th when it's happening. The morning of the 9th, you see it's back to normal wind patterns. Normal wind patterns in the 9th. But there's the afternoon of the 7th where they're all lined up, and the morning of the 8th where we still have lined up clouds and these winds coming at us. Now,
And the
what would
hurricane,
create
just reminding everybody, the hurricane was the lower left-hand side.
500
Wasn't
miles to the south, like far, far to
south.
the
So
south?
yeah.
And you'll see that in a moment. But I'm going to talk about cymatics just because I'm going to use that term. I want you to understand what that is.
Okay.
So basically, if you take a speaker and you put a metal plate above it, and on that metal plate, you put sand on it and you run notes through it, like this guy playing the piano, with each different notes reaches harmonic patterns, and you get these resonance patterns of sand on the thing. You can do the same thing with a petri dish on a loudspeaker, and you can run different sounds through the speaker, and you will get these wave patterns in the petri dish. And basically the clouds are a big petri dish. So you can get strange things. If you run frequencies like cymatics, you can get that type of effect in the clouds.
Wow.
So, these lines of clouds. Now, these are clouds all together. What we experience here were like lines of clouds, like one line after another, like all lined up coming at us.
Mm-hmm.
So let's look at the actual hurricane. I said hurricanes form at 10 degrees latitude, the intertropical conversion zone.
For
And that's
Maui.
where they start to spin. So here we are off the coast of Mexico at 10 degrees latitude where hurricanes normally form. And, a bunch of clouds kind of come together and make a hurricane. It makes a tight little hurricane, which looks to me like a natural hurricane. I don't see any aerosol injections coming into that. Maybe it had something when they started it, hard to tell. Nothing conclusive. But it cruises around at 10 degrees, stays at 10-degree latitude, just like natural hurricanes are supposed to do, with all the big clouds and the thunderstorms happen at 10 degrees latitude. But as it approaches, this strange thing starts to happen in the clouds to the north. Now you notice there's a cloud bank following it, that's moving along at the same speed, 15 miles per hour, or just the speed that it moves, normal cloud patterns coming at us like the trade winds. But here, something appears in the clouds above us to the north of the hurricane that makes it line up into this weird type of thing. It looks like frequencies happening out there. It looks like that cymatics. You can see it glistening.
Yep.
We're going to slow it down and come up close and take a look at it. But the hurricane continues past us at 10 degrees latitude, and it starts to veer off 10 degrees.
Is that
Where it
August
starts to
8th? What
break.
day? Oh, okay,
That's
August
August
10th.
9th,
Okay.
August 10th. So it's
Okay,
going
got it.
onward, and that's universal time up there. But a few days later, the hurricanes pass us and it breaks off into the, veers off 10 degrees and just breaks into a tropical storm. But let's look a little closer at this section right here, where you see in the area to the north, up in this area here, you see the clouds break up and start making this weird glistening type of pattern of lines. And if you look closely, you could even see a point source right here. It looks like there's a loudspeaker creating a cymatics pattern in the middle.
Wow. That is, yeah, I see
Now,
that. I see that up
I
there.
save this in real time as it's happening, because that's the only way I can get the screenshots. But when I went back in time and tried to save the saved stuff later. I didn't see any of this. This whole area was just blank to the north, like it was blacked out from the actual record after the fact.
Wow. Thank God for you.
So the fact that I saved this in real time, and yes, it's in multiple locations, so no one's going to be able to get rid of it. um, then yeah, you can see, we'll go again and we'll look carefully. We're going to show this loop a couple of times to really get the feeling of what's going on into the north. I'm going to get some of the little computer graphics so you can see that a little better and colorize it a bit so you can see the glistening patterns up there.
And so in
But
your
if you take a
15
look,
years, sorry, in your 15 years of studying and watching the weather, have you ever seen something like this?
never seen these type of weather patterns, this frequency generated in clouds that I could see floating along. I've never seen it associated with a hurricane. It's normal weather patterns between us and the hurricane, so it's not the hurricane. They try to come up with excuses. Oh, it's a low pressure and a high pressure interacting 1,000 miles apart from each other. And they try to come up with this, wind troughs and this and that and make a bunch of gobbledygook, but it's basically gobbledygook. It doesn't explain what's happening. Let's zoom in a little closer to it to really try to see this pattern. And then you can see right at about in this area right here, you can almost see like it's being generated from this spot right in here. Like there's somebody out there creating frequencies in the clouds, creating these lines of clouds coming at us over here, line after line, to us in a way. Now these are
Wow.
loops. I put these loops together, and so there's a little disjunct between the loops, but it's showing you the cymatics appearing stuff,
Just
creating
keeps
the
going.
lines of cloud. Yeah,
So
these
I
are
have
the loops
another
put
question for
together.
you
Yeah,
around hurricanes. So the islands always, I mean, there's hurricane wet season and all of that. Has Maui ever had, what was it, 70-mile-hour winds when a hurricane is 600 miles off and Big Island doesn't have any winds that bad?
never. The winds of a hurricane have very small force outside of this. Within 50 miles outside of the hurricanes, the winds are gone. So we have no wind speed coming through it, but it's plausible deniability for common people who don't really ask questions or investigate that, oh, it's a hurricane traveling to the south, so that's what caused the winds. And oh, yeah, it's the hurricane force
With it been
winds.
missing Big Island. So Big
Right.
Island's there first, you guys. We didn't get winds like that.
No, no, just Maui. And you see those winds didn't even go past the Hawaiian Islands. Like whatever force it was that was creating it was targeted to hit the islands and then stop. So they were like, and you can create interference patterns by having 2 points at one point, you know, creating something off over here and actually targeting it some other place. Interferential, it's used in your physical therapist, right? Interferential is used 2 different frequencies, a little beat off from each other, create a pulse wave in between to do it. So you can have pulses by having 2 higher frequencies, one at 1,000 hertz, one at 1,005 hertz, and then you have a 5 hertz beat frequency in between happening. So you can do these sort of things and then create a beat frequency that would create, okay, a big cloud. Okay, 5 minutes later, another big cloud coming at us, one after another, extra low frequencies. By using ionospheric heaters, where you heat up the ionosphere, rises up, turns it off. There were no aerosols up there. It was just the natural clouds that were doing it. So the only way you would be able to do that would be heating the ionosphere, because there are no ions in the clouds above it. You didn't see any reflective particles in there. So that's why I think this is a clear use of the HARP technology.
DEWs, you guys. We all know what that is. Look at that.
Yeah. That's plasma energy. That's even but now you can kind of see this pattern right in this area right here, where you almost see it like it's generated right in here on this particular loop.
Wow.
You can kind of see the focal points, and by having multiple things going different spots, like I said, interferential, you can create a beat frequency in between it, right where you want it to go, and line up these clouds to come at us in wave after wave.
Wow.
And what's even strange is that Lahaina itself had a wind that came from the mountain down to the ocean, completely different than a wind wrapping around the side. It was coming from the mountain down. Now, they historically had one. There's a Hawaiian name for it by a certain valley that can sometimes
Hmm.
generate the wind.
I heard
But it
that.
happens in the evening for about 15 or 20 minutes when a big wind suddenly comes because from the mountain, and then it dissipates, and it can cause all sorts of stuff. Not something that goes all day long.
All day long
All
from the
day
opposite
long.
direction of the hurricane. Because if
Correct.
it's coming from the hurricane, shouldn't it come up from the south?
Yeah. And in fact, on the 8th, the winds died down on the North Shore. I was on the North Shore when that fire was happening, and uh, we weren't experiencing high winds anymore. That had subsided. So the idea that there are high winds coming up over so high they're coming over the mountain and down the other side, is mythology. It doesn't line up with science. There was nothing to support that
Yeah, you want to
there was
trust
a
the
big
science,
wind.
everybody. That is totally against the science right there.
So there's this funny little anomaly that happens right when the fires are happening, right off the shore of Lahaina, right in here. I'm going to show this little loop and I'll do it again. There's an area that suddenly blacks out right there for some reason. I don't know what happened. That's exactly when our big winds were happening, but something, either an anomaly happened in the weather patterns for a pixelation, or there was something they didn't want us to see, and then it got scrubbed. Things get scrubbed from the record all the time. Like I showed
Wow.
you in Acapulco, were 5 hours of the prime time of aerosol, and just before the rapid intensification were like pulled off the record so you could see it
Wow.
unless you saved it real time.
That is amazing.
So again, here's that little anomaly, boom, right off the coast of Maui, and then it goes away. And I'm really zooming in to get pixelations in order to see that.
That's the day of the fires, you
The
guys,
day
right
of the
there.
fire from that anomaly goes from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Oh my gosh. You mean it sits black like that from
It's
9
black
a.m. to
like
6
that
p.m.?
off the coast, like there's something sparkly or something they didn't want us to see, so they
They just
conveniently
black it
took
out.
black it out. And that's when the major fire happened during that time period. That's when it ignited and took off. Like particularly in the
Wow.
afternoon from 2:30 to 6 is when most of the fires picked up.
Hmm.
So harp antennas again, we went over that. So that's basically what I wanted to share
Okay. Well, how about you?
that.
I'll see if I can do a screen share and I'll show what I have about the Maui fires here. So this is standtogetherhawaii.com, and I clicked on Maui fires and I scrolled down and just take a look at this. This is a weather modification WM Act of 1976, and it's in October 13th. And I'm not going to read this whole bill because you guys can find it, standtogetherhawaii.com/Maui fires, scroll down. But the enrolled bill would let me do this. The enrolled bill would direct the Secretary of Commerce to conduct a study which would include a review and analysis of research efforts and needs in weather modification technology. I mean, I'm not going to read the whole thing, an assessment of potential economic importance, but this is all about WMs, you guys. The uses, peaceful uses. Interesting that they say that, peaceful uses. The other one I want to show is this one, which is a U.S. patent for an method of apparatus for altering a region in the Earth's atmosphere, ionosphere, and/or magnetosphere. And this is a U.S. patent, so this is not just woo-woo stuff, and definitely not with what Bruce just showed us. Weather WM projects. And this is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And what is the word here? Reports. In the late 1940s and 50s, many deemed the deliberate and inadvertent alteration of atmospheric conditions by human activity, also known as the famous WM right there, as a promising science of the future. Okay, and then we have this. And the last one I want to show is this company. This is all at Stand Together Hawaii. Weather WM Inc. has a Weather Modification Inc. has a wide range of services to provide knowledge, data, equipment, and capability at any phase in your project. We can also tailor a program to meet your specific objectives and manage it from the beginning to end. And one of their slogans is people look up at the sky and see clouds. We see potential. And I think that's on their homepage. Yeah, when most people look up, they see clouds, we see potential. That is a true corporation that does this work, you guys. The other thing I want to share
By the way, do you know who bought that company?
Who?
Monsanto.
Who is it?
Monsanto bought that company.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. Yeah, because
and what's in the GMO seeds, and we researched the GMO seeds, and we were doing GMO corn seeds, and what's one of the patents that's in it, it's called aluminum resistance in their GMO seeds.
Oh my goodness.
So if aluminum is raining down on your neighbor's crops and they're failing because they're getting toxic with the aluminum raining down,
yeah,
we have GMO seeds that are aluminum resistant.
Wow. Yeah, another reason to detox your body, everybody. The other thing I want to share with this is weather modification. The DEW Act of 2016, because people don't believe in DEWs. So this is an act in Congress, and this is called the DEW Systems Acquisition Act of 2016. And this is a DEW system, means military. Okay, I didn't want to read that part, but take a look at this. This is here. And this is real stuff, everyone. The other one I wanted to share on this one is also a patent for the US patent, microwave transmission using laser generated plasma beam. And this is a patent, everyone. Let me move our faces. 2020, 2002. And when I was interviewing the 48-year arborist who has gone to 38 different fire locations over 100 times, and he did a whole thing on Maui, he said there's no way that this is a regular wildfire. He said it is a microwave. It has to be some type of microwave frequency. And I asked him, how is it possible? Let me just stop the share. How is it possible that a fire which burns so hot doesn't burn the trees or the foliage? He said, because the chemistry of the fire doesn't recognize the organic material. This is why people's bodies were left recognizable. I mean, when you look at a person that burns to death, their skeleton is maybe left, their teeth are maybe left, but not the outline of their hair. So a friend of mine has an actual toad that he picked up from Lahaina, and it's in jumping mode. And this one scientist was like, oh, maybe it buried itself and it mummified, and it's not buried. The legs are extended and it looks like it's jumping and frozen, and it's completely charred on the outside, completely hollow on the inside. We're actually going to be getting it tested. But anyway, so we do want to share that. Lahaina, we have not forgotten about you. And we do stand with you. Please check the links for the two people that are there to support you right now that I know of. And we're going to keep going with this. We did submit some complaints to the Maui police chief against the Maui police chief. I'm sorry. We complained to the Maui police commissioner against the Maui police chief, and I'll be doing an updated report on that, you guys. But Bruce, anything lastly you want to share with us?
Well, let me show you some arson points, because the brush fire was a big thing. So let's look at the brush fire. Let's slideshow from current slide. Possible ignition points of arson, because if you're going to use DEWs, you got to have plausible deniability that the fire was caused by some other sort of way, like the brush fire. How does a fire brush burn a whole town down? Between that and the wind. So what I'm seeing is they engineered somebody ignited 3 different spots here of brush fires in order to keep everything crowded in smoke. And then something within Lahaina itself suddenly, houses are spontaneously combusting into fires. Boats are spontaneously combusting. cars are suddenly exploding. You know, everything's just going off in this quick fire. Or just boom, boom, boom,
Yeah.
boom. Well, all that happens under the cover of smoke. So there's 3 different points I see here on the south side, up here by Lahaina Luna School area, and another one on the north side of Lahaina. We're going to look at each one of those and see what we see. So here you can see the 2 points right here, where you can see the normal wind 99.99% of the time travel this direction around the side of the island, and they blow this way. And you can see a leading edge here right alongside of the highway on either side, where it's a small little tube coming in, right? And then it gets bigger and bigger and opens up into a big fire. You see the same thing on the other side of the road. And I've been looking for the arson points to see how do they start the brush fire. Was it directed energy? Was it arson? Was it power lines? What was it? Well, guess what? There's no power lines here. So this is the
There's no
first
power
one
lines there.
on the mountainside, right here in the brush alongside the road. You can see it opening up, you know, and then going on its merry way, you know, toward Lahaina. And I'm going to show you this little video right here that I took showing the arson point right here. You know, we're suddenly in the high brush alongside of the highway. It ignites. There's no power lines, no fires above that point, but downwind from that point, it carries along the ridge line, right? It travels up another ridge line up toward the mountain because the field was nothing in it to burn. And it continues on its way. And at first I thought it jumped the highway. A lot of people think it jumped the highway, went down here, but there's fire above that point. So it couldn't have jumped the highway. So then I looked, you know, a week later, I came back and I looked on the other side of the road and I saw this other arson point in the brush on the opposite side of the highway, where the same thing happened. It travels, makes a line down and hits a field where there's big brush to burn. And so this is the video of that point right here, where you can see here's the spot in the high brush, you know, further than you could flick a cigarette. So it wasn't a cigarette flick on either side of the highway. It's too far for that. You had to have gotten out of your car. You had to have, you know, easily put a little time delay thing right there to start the fire and then run off. And you see it burning down here. It goes down the hillside. You know, there's no fire above that point, but down that point, it goes through this little valley along the fence line, opens up and takes out the other side of the highway. So that glows the theory that the fire jumped the highway, because here's higher in the jump point, another fire was started and went down on its merry way. And that, with a little bit of wind, can whip it up and go right into town. And that's basically what happened. But that's brush is not really enough of an inferno to create it. Now, the other start point, the one that we know about, the one that started early in the morning and is up here at Lahaina Luna, just below some solar panel area. It's this area right here. There's a big power station, you know, transformers. You could think, okay, that could have been an electrical spark lighting the brush right next to it. But, you know, why, when you have something like this, do you not cut the brush down around it? So that's the fire right there, which they put out and then apparently reignited in the afternoon and went on its merry way into town. So that could have been, I can't say that was arson because, yeah, there's power lines there. So you have a plausible deniability for what it was. The third spot is along a road line. And this is Google Earth, like a couple days after the fire. It didn't update every segment. But basically, the fire goes, you know, all the way up to this road line right here and down this road line here. Everything burnt to the road and went on down. So there's lots of places along here where that fire could have started, and I can't really pinpoint any one spot, but there's no power lines here in order to start a fire. And this area right here is where that fire started and went downhill following the winds and carried them the merry way and took out the north end of town. And then on Kula, I looked around for more arson points, and sure enough, right alongside the highway, I found it. No, the winds travel this direction downwind, and right here is where the fire starts, in a pile of dead trees and stuff alongside of the highway. And then the fire carries its merry way down. Now, this is some weeks later, so the grass is already starting to grow back again with some rains. But you can see where it happened. And right here at my feet is where nothing's burning here. That spot there is where it starts. It goes under the fence to there. It goes along the fence line and catches up and burns that whole forest area down below with nothing above that point. So that appears to me, as an arson point of one of the many Kula fires.
Wow.
Remember, the Kula fires kept all the fire popping up there, and in the afternoon when the big fire happened in Lahaina, 2/3 of the workforce was up battling Kula, and they weren't in Lahaina, so nobody was there to battle the wildfire there. And so
Wow.
they're
Well, we do have people that are investigating this, so I will be sending this to them. And
good. But just for the good news is that the fires in Olinda and Kula basically burnt the understories, but not the trees. So this is the pine forests of Olinda, and you can see just the brush has been burned, all the leaves, all the dead stuff on the ground, and the base of the trees. But if you look up, the trees are still green. This was, like 4 weeks after the fire. I took this.
because trees
It's
don't burn in
doing
a
fine.
wildfire.
Right.
I
The
was talking
underbrush.
to this guy at this, I was like, I couldn't believe it. He goes, well, it was a different type of fire. It was different type of fire. Oh, like what? Easter Bunny fire? Or like Tooth Fairy fire? Was it a Santa Claus fire? Like, what the fuck?
What the freak?
Sorry. I'm in a
Yeah.
cafe. People are looking at
The,
me, so.
the F word. You death bombed it. But this is the eucalyptus trees of Olinda. Same thing. The trees are, the underbrush got burnt, the bases got burnt, but it didn't actually catch the trees on fire and burn the forest like would happen in Colorado or someplace where everything's so dry, the whole tree goes up. We have enough moisture in our trees there. So we just did it. So that's kind of what I want to show you on the arson points.
Yeah, there's one more other thing I'm going to share too. This is going to be a long video, but it's good. So let me go over here. I told you guys that people actually, here it is right here. There's no climate emergency. This is World Climate Declaration, no climate emergency, 1,609 signatories of people from around the world, you guys. My friend who works for national security tried to get on this document to sign it. She doesn't qualify. You actually have to be a real scientist to get, and not saying that she's not a real scientist, but you got to have some major credentials to be one of the people that signed this thing. So this is on, again, to believe the outcome of climate model is to believe what the model makers have put in. This is precisely the problem of today's climate discussion in which climate models are essential. Climate science has degenerated into a discussion based on beliefs, not on sound self-critical science. Should not we free ourselves from the naive belief in immature climate models? And this is the undersigned have signed this, you guys. So this is, and then here's it goes. It goes from scientists, Argentina, Australia, it just keeps going. It just keeps going. And then there's other countries that pop in here. Austria, Bangladesh, Barbados, Belgium, and you can just look through that. But that is again on standtogetherhawaii.com. Not only that, but if you want to have a 50-year meteorologist and climatologist who worked for the U.S. Navy show you that we're actually 8,000 years past the hottest point connected to the sun. We were right above the sun 8,000 years ago. We're cooling. The Earth is going into a cooling in its elliptical journey around the sun. So I just wanted to share that. And please look at standtogetherhawaii.com, join our email list. And Bruce, any last things you want to share?
Well, people talk about the DEW word, and you have to understand that its plasma energy is different, because it's a change of state. I mean, we think of solid, liquid, gas, and plasma. Plasma is stuff that's no longer spinning and organized, it's disorganized. It's basically what most of the stuff of the universe is unorganized stuff until it starts to spin and make molecules and everything based on spin. So lightning is kind of like, it's a plasma wave in a way. It acts like plasma energy. When lightning hits a tree, okay, look at a tree, lightning is hit. There's lots of pictures of them. It basically goes in the center of the tree and cooks the tree from the inside. When it gets to the base where it grounds out, that's the point where all the heat dissipates, because that's the grounding spot, and it changes state and it creates intense heat at the base. So the base of the tree catches fire and the center of the tree burns. And we have lots of pictures from fires around the world including right here on Maui. I got pictures I took of the inside of the tree toasted and the outside of the bark still there. I got pictures of
Mm-hmm.
trees burning during the fire. The base
Mm-hmm.
of the tree is burning, but the rest of the tree is, leaves and everything are still on it, but it's burning from the base
Yes.
with no wildfire and no fire that traveled down below to it. Um,
Yep.
and so, this is some of the signs you look for. It's not conclusive. We can't say it was definitely that, but it certainly indicates the use of directed energy weapons along with engineered winds, arson, and they can also plant phosphorus in trash cans and put little explosive device in it so things pop off. I mean, you can use arson points to create sudden houses bursting into flames, or you can do it from above. And
Yep. 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 And then the last thing I want to share is the church. Have you seen the church, Bruce?
well, I can show you another video. Unfortunately, we had some forensic friends look at it, and um, let me.
What are your friends thinking about this?
They took a drone and looked from above, and there were no signs of any sort of things from above. It
Okay.
looks like a line below, but if you look carefully at the picture, I see a power electrical cable hanging down from the picture inside. So go to the part where
Okay.
it's inside, and you see a wire hanging down. It looks like it fell from the very point where that wire is. And yes,
Mm-hmm.
you can see a fire outside, but when you look at the drone shots from above, I can see if I can find my drone shots here.
Oh, okay. Okay. So I just wanted to drop that in there because I know that that's going around TikTok, but oh, and just getting out there. I didn't know what it was, but we do
Well,
have oh, go ahead.
just because it's good, because this is the point. It's the first time these pictures just got made 3 days ago, this video.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to share my screen, and this is a drone shot they just made a couple days ago of the roof itself to see whether anything from above. And it's simple in order to do it because we got curious too and said we got to find
Mm-hmm.
out. We couldn't go in the church, but there's a ridge line. There's where a fire happened, where you can see it burned the eave and part of the roof
And
collapsed
this was on
in.
August 8th. This happened the day of the fires.
Yeah, this happened as part of August 8th.
Okay.
But do we see a sign now? He couldn't go inside in order to determine, where that roof fell and where there's a wall right there. It's maybe it's something behind. It's hard to tell, but there's no like signs of anything in this drone shot that show that, there was a directed energy weapon from above that created that line. And again, if you look at the pictures from the inside of the church, you'll see this wire hanging down inside the church, like maybe a wire shorted out and caused that little line piece there to burn and then fall down, but not have
Okay.
enough energy to catch anything else on fire. So
Mm.
that's the forensic we did on that one to try to see if we had any evidence.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Awesome. Well, let's do a quick prayer and maybe I can have some lunch and let these people eat in peace. Great Spirit, infinite intelligence of all things, we know that we're all here for a reason. And this darkness, this evilness, these demons that call themselves governors and call themselves police chiefs and call themselves the leaders of our country, that there has been an attack that they are showing clearly when they walk out of meetings without listening to the people, that they are not for the people. And we know that in a peaceful way, they are being released from this planet, that their power is dissolving, and that the people's power of standing up in unity and in love and in harmony and in peace, that we are way, way more powerful standing together than any of these demons that are in a position of influence right now, in a position of power. These corporations that call themselves governments are being shown for what they truly are, which is just an empire that has no heart, no love for the people, and they are falling, and the people are coming together, and this world and land will be at peace. And we send inner strength to all people around the world, Lahaina, Acapulco, Israel, Palestine, East Palestine, on the mainland. We have not forgotten about you. Australia, Canada, all places that have been attacked. We hold you in our hearts. We send you inner strength. We are so grateful for your guidance and your angels that are supporting you with your journey right now. And we know that something magical is coming out of this absolute terror and the horror of what we see. Some of it is true and some of it is not true, what we're seeing in the Israel and Palestine area, knowing that it is not the Israel government. It is these Zionists, it is these Jesuits, it is the Catholic Church that has started the whole thing for power, for money, for greed. And those people are being removed from the planet in a peaceful way, leaving the people here, the true men and women, living men and women under the divine infinite creator in peace. We know that it is done, and we know that each one of us has the inner strength to make it through this time. And we send Bruce so much gratitude for his research, for his overstanding, his comprehension of the satellite images of the weather, and his courage to stand up to speak the truth. We just send him so much gratitude on his journey, knowing that he is guided, he is protected, and he is always being shown what is his next kuleana. So, Great Spirit, in the name of the Jesus Christ consciousness that sends us so much love around the planet, we are not alone in this. We are never, ever alone. We know it is done, and so it is.
Oh,
Bruce, thank you so much for your time.
and thank you for always putting a spiritual perspective on what's happening in the world, because without that, it's people only see darkness, and with it, and we can see, no, it's a process humanity's going through to grow and learn and evolve from a competitive species to a cooperative species, and to rid itself of demonic forces that aren't of the people,
Yep.
but are of another force. So thank you for
Yep.
maintaining and always putting the spiritual perspective on it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Always, always, because this is a spiritual war. When Maui's attacked, Acapulco, all these places, they're under attack by the evilness. And these demons are leaving. And we do this with ourselves. Everybody take your stand. You know, even though I don't know how much it works contacting our legislative body because it is a corporation, but we still do what we can. And we trust in that higher power because that's the power we have. So let's use it. All right, Bruce, much mahalo. Aloha to you all.
Thank you.